All right, I think I'm live. It's been a while. It's been a long time, but I'm back. I have new modules to talk about. I got general Pittsburgh Modular stuff to talk about, but I figured I would spend this next few minutes, because it's been a while, just making sure everything works, and then I can sort of chop this bit out, and then the stuff related to the modules can be left in the video, but this part I'll sort of chop out after the live stream is over. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully you can hear some cymbals, because that's what's happening right now. Yeah, I think they sound nice. Some drums. So how's everybody doing? Thank you for hanging out with me this evening. I have some modules I'm going to talk about, and some general Pittsburgh Modular stuff, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about the elephant and the narwhal, which are on the right-hand side of the screen here. I also have some other new modules in here, like the koi, which is a malt with LEDs. And the reason we made that is because I needed a malt. So, yeah, I think that's everything that's in the shot. I think there's some other modules in here that I haven't talked about yet, but for tonight, I think that's good enough. I'm using one of the new prototype structure cases here, so this is a pretty big case, but I'm zoomed in because we're going to talk about some drums tonight. It's been a while. I've been crazy busy with the launch of the Create Audio East Beast, Create Audio West Pest. That has kept me busy, and also the first Pittsburgh instrument, which it's in production now. It should be out early fall, we're hoping. I think everyone's going to be really, really happy with what they see. We do have 4 Pittsburgh instruments in the works at the moment. That'll, probably come out over the next 2 years. This stuff takes a long time. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to give you little glimpses of what we're doing using these Safari modules as sort of sneak peeks into our design process and some of the concepts that we're working on. So obviously, this is the third and the fourth drum voice that we've done in the last couple months. And this is the end of the drum voices for us. I don't plan on doing any more drum modules. Certainly in the short term, never say never, I guess, but I don't have a need for any more drums at this point for future projects. So for now, this will be it, but I think it makes for a nice drum line, and I think it makes for a pretty awesome core for maybe a drum machine. So for the most part tonight, I'm going to try to keep the sounds just to the elephant and the narwhal. And I suppose I can first talk about the elephant. Let me turn off some drums here. So the elephant is... I call it the elephant drum, because it really is very wide ranging in what it can do. You could call it a tom drum or percussion, or you could just talk about drum. It's sort of inspired by the syndrome, in that you have an oscillator, then you have a secondary oscillator FMing it, that you can FM it at audio rates, or really all sorts of, or very slow for some wobble. And that's kind of the core of this sound. But the way that everything interacts, it does have a VCA and an envelope built in, and the way that they all interact is sort of the magic of this thing. So it's not a clone of the Syndrum, but it does, it functions very similarly, and it's pushed in that direction. One thing the Syndrum had that this doesn't have is a noise circuit. So this is, but we've also expanded the modulation section and added some things that are more Pittsburgh to it. So again, not a clone, but certainly inspired by it. So if we create a little pattern here, and I'm going to use this snakes here to tap in a pattern. And I'll take out the modulation. So right now you can hear we have kind of a bass drum sound going on here. And I can turn down the modulation. The white knobs are the modulator. This switch selects the waveform of the modulator between triangle, saw, and square. And then the red section is your main oscillator. And then your CV are these gray knobs. And that's gray knobs for CV are, you can see it on the Llama here too. And on the Narwhal, gray knobs for the new Pittsburgh Modular user interface are going to typically mean CV. And I say typically, and all the scary modules off to the right here have the same color scheme as far as gray knobs for CV as well. But I say typically because we do have one module coming up that sort of flips it. And as soon as you see it, you'll understand why, and it'll make sense that we use the gray knobs for all of the knobs except for the CV, which ended up being red because the red was right in the middle of a red animal, and it looked weird with gray. So anyway, not important. Focus on the elephant. So we have our tension here. This is our envelope. And you can hear as we open that up, we're adjusting both the tuning and the length of decay, because we have our tuning CV right now is normal to the tension. So we can turn that down. So you can get some blocky stuff there, and it's pretty simple. Or where waveform can be either a sine, or you can blow it out into a square. That's also voltage controllable. It's also normal to the tension, the envelope. So you just get as much movement as possible in this thing, really. So we can add in, we have audio rate modulation at this point. And this thing is just incredibly percussive, which, you know, it's a drum sound. And this is why we called it elephant drum and not elephant tom or elephant, because it has such a wide range depending on what you use for modulation and how much you modulate it. Just a huge range available. If we turn that down, get a nice kick drum out of it. And then I have this jack is connected to a sequencer right below it that I have some of the steps pushed the CVs all the way up, and some of them are all the way down at 0 volts. And if we add that to the material, that would be the waveform of the oscillator. We could sort of shape the oscillator by steps, creating some interesting patterns. We're using the same basic drum sound. So there's a huge palette in the elephant, and I think a really interesting drum. So the normaling is tension. Tension is your envelope. So the output of the tension, your output of your envelope, is normal to both tuning and material. So you can use that to modulate both the material and the tuning. And then the modulator is normaled to the FM of the oscillator. This is gonna. There's gonna be some weird sounds tonight. So it's nice. You can get a lot of very short percussive sounds with it that are very interesting and dynamic. Or you could use it for a kick drum. You could use it for a tom. A lot of options. If we, instead of using the sequencer to modulate the material, we could take a noise source, and I grabbed a noise source from the Voltage Lab, but it could be any analog or digital noise source. And that's, even though it's modulating the material, because it's a noise source, it really does impart itself on the sound quite a bit. And you can create sort of an interesting snare drum, even without using modulation at the top here. We can then take, tuning, or we can modulate that with a second CV. This is another sequencer just cycling through with a couple high and couple low CV points. And then both of the CV inputs are attenuverters, so with the noise coming in the material, we can attenuate that. And then add maybe some audio rate FM. Longer decay times, it gets a little weird, but at nice short decay times, I think you have a very interesting drum sound there. So we'll take out our noise. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. So I've also added the Narwhal. And you know what? Maybe I will drop out the elephant completely, and we'll just talk about the Narwhal now. And then we'll play with them both at the same time. And then we'll answer questions. Narwhal is a cymbal. Now this is not based on another pre-existing circuit. It's not based on another drum machine or another cymbal. It really is. This is a sort of thought from scratch with the idea, like we did with the kick and the snare. This idea of analog modeling. So the idea is to create something that sounds like a cymbal, and I think this does a really, really good job of creating hi-hat type sounds, or different interesting timbres of cymbals. So up top we have tuning. It changes the core frequency of all of the oscillators. We have a density switch here, which push down, the sounds are less dense. You can see we can go down to very simple sound. Then we have material. You can see as we bring this in, we're shaping the sound by bringing in additional oscillators. And if we flip the density up, we start. Here's single, and here we're starting, I think, with 6 oscillators. And then again, you can use material to shape that. And we have a high-pass filter. We have a decay control, and that decay is voltage controllable with an attenuator. I can take again, just taking not quite a random sequence, but I certainly didn't program anything. I just sort of put the 16 sliders in different spots and let it do its thing to give the cymbal some movement, because I think it's really important for a cymbal to have some life to it. But the cymbal has a very metallic sound. Kind of sounds ridiculous. At full decay, it's a very strange sounding oscillator. So you do have a very wide range to pull from, but ultimately, once you dial in your sound, you get something that sounds really crisp and really alive, and it sounds like a cymbal, which is what we were, what we were aiming for while we were working on it. The Narwhal is a relatively simple modular, and all of the drum pounds are they're meant to be, well, with maybe the exception of the elephant, they're meant to be very easy to use, very hands-on, just grab something, and you can give it a big turn while you're performing or while you're jamming, and the end result is probably going to be musical. I think the voltage control decay on this really helps it. It adds so much depth and life to it. Create audio asks if the Narwhal tracks 1 volt per octave. No. No, it doesn't. There's no CV for pitch at all. The hi-hat of the future. So now that we have our Narwhal and our elephant, we can make some interesting patterns here. I tend to like shorter, very sort of quick, very sharp sounds for percussive sounds. But sometimes you want bubbles. Did add the polar bear snare in here. Keep that relatively tight as well. It's so tempting to use the elephant as just a kick drum because it does it so well. And again, that's why we sort of called it just a drum, because it can be just about anything, and I didn't want to sort of push anybody in one direction with it or another. It will do tom-toms. Using the material CV tied to the tension envelope, you really can simulate that sound of striking the head and getting that flex on the drum head. So this would be just a straight up sine wave from the oscillator. But we could just add a little bit of CV, so we're getting a little bit of the envelope Just gives it that little bit of flex. There's a nice tom. It's a nice low tom. We can even take using some CV from a sequencer, I can now pitch the toms to low, medium, high, or, you know, any CV. So I could have low, medium, 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 medium. That may be a little bit unnecessary. Oops. Sorry. Keep bumping the mic. So there's a million sounds in this elephant. It really is something you could just sit and play with and come up with. Depending on whether you want to use it for a tom or a kick or just a weird percussive sound that happens now and then. So now we have the llama doing the kick. Let the kick drum do the kick. And that leaves the elephant. Now we can just do some weird percussive stuff with it. And if you run the LFO below audio rate, you get it's almost like a sample and hold. It has the frequency jumping around a bunch. We have a sine wave or a triangle. We could switch that to the saw. And because it is full frequency range, the elephant, you could very easily take that and run it through a filter. A filter of crows in bandpass. Speaking of the filter of crows, we made 200 of them, and we initially sold 175, and we held 25 back because we wanted to make sure, there were some problems with shipping or exploded modules or who knows. But we are slowly now taking those last 25 and putting them up on the website. So I think Perry put up 10 today. So if you missed out on the filtered crows, or you want another, or you just want to look at it on the store, there are some there. Or you just like to know it exists. I like this sound. I forgot to mute my phone before I started this. Yeah, I think that thing sounds super cool. I like this sort of hi-hat sound because it has almost like a glass kind of vibe to it. I'm testing the next. There's always a next batch. The next batch of Safari modules, and I describe them as the boring modules, but wildly useful. The koi malt here, and you can see it blinking. I think it's blinking with resets and clocks. And then off to the right, which you can't see, is the Okapi mixer. And there's two different versions. The version I have in here is the panning version. So it's a 4-channel mixer that you can pan either left or right. And I'm kind of thinking I should have been using the other version, which has mutes for each channel. It's mono, but it has mutes for each channel instead of pans. But then I couldn't do this. I guess I could always mute things using the sequencer. I wonder if there's enough, an effort to get this live stream off the rails as quickly as possible here. I wonder if there's enough low-end information in this for the delay to work with it. Not really. What if we do this? No. There we go. The delay in the voltage lab. And the feedback in that one compared to the delays I've been testing in some new stuff is very different. Interesting. Put the elephant on the left and the narwhal on the right. If you're listening to this in mono, it sounds exactly the same. Synth asks, who is the designer of the faceplates? I love them, real artworks. And the only reason I'm going to read this and call it out is because it was me. The faceplates on the Safari module sort of started as a way for us, because we had to switch vendors for the metal. So they started out as a way for me to learn how to format stuff for them and to see what they were capable of doing. So they've been slowly getting more elaborate. Sort of each generation of them gets more and more elaborate, because I feel like, okay, I understand that they can do this. Now let's see if they can do that. If you look at, and I don't have any of the first generation in the shot here, but if you look at something like the gibbon or the crow, it was one color printing on black. And with the elephant and the narwhal, we've clearly gone far beyond that. It's just because I have, my understanding of what they can do and how to format it in a way that it's going to come out how I want it has improved. Because like the modules they're sort of circuit experiments, the artwork is an experiment as well. So every aspect of what we're doing is sort of relearning and getting better at making modules and making instruments, and it's been a fun process. I'm particularly fond of the elephant panel. I think it looks really, really cool. And the narwhal is such a bizarre creature that I'm also a fan. Anatomy says, go on with these modules, but please not limited quantities. The reason we're doing limited quantities is that we're really trying to focus on these instruments that we have coming out in the future. But at the same time, we're really excited about these circuits, and we are experimenting with them. So what you see in the modules isn't necessarily what will be in the final instrument, but it allows us to take that. This is the sort of here's the everything circuit, and say, okay, what makes the most sense in this instrument that I'm working on? Because now I can hear it, I understand what it offers me within the context of the instrument, and I can add or subtract bits and pieces of it to make sense. And we were going to make prototypes of this stuff anyway, so it's one of those things. It's like, well, if we're going to make 10 prototypes so we can test this stuff, why not then, once we do all that prototyping and we have something that works, why not share it with as many people as we can? So 200 seems like a good number. What I was really worried about at first was that they would sell it very quickly, and I would feel like the people that really wanted it would have missed their chance. But I feel like everything's selling fast enough now that it's doing what I want it to do, but at the same time, I feel like everyone that wants in has an opportunity to get the modules. So I think we've struck a really nice balance with that. And because we're making 200 and that's it, we don't have to worry about having them as a product line. We don't need the maintenance that comes with a product line. And I have a whole philosophy behind why I think that's the decision we made, which doesn't really fit the context of this video, but we are doing 200 of each, and when they're gone, they're gone. But knowing full well that even though they're gone, they will resurface in an upcoming instrument or in a different form and maybe a different module, because maybe we thought, oh, you know what, that was really interesting, but what if we did something totally different? Trying to think if I have something like that in the works right now. We do have the next version of the local florist, which is the cascading florist, and it's an example of we're taking a limited module, the local florist, which was the first limited module, and we're really saying, okay, what if we put the focus of it on a different aspect of what it can do and showcase that? So it's a lot more fun for us if we can say, okay, let's make 200 of these things, and when they're gone, let's focus on something else. And that's long story short. And you're right about quantities that will sell as well. 200 seems like a small number, but is there a market for 200 of some of this stuff? I would hope so, but you're right. You never know. And prices are going up for the modules that aren't available. Specifically, I think they're going up for the Crow. That's just a really good sounding module. So, like I said, we don't want to do the same thing over again. So we did the filter of Crows, which I think is certainly my favorite version of the Pittsburgh filter, because it has so many options. It's sort of everything we've done over the years put together in one handy module. Where the Crow was taking the Pittsburgh filter and doing this one specific thing with it, which was just overdrive the hell out of it. Filter of Crows, you can do that, but then you can also do all the subtle stuff. Which I think a lot of times, is more interesting, or can certainly be a lot more flexible in a case. But I do get that the Crow was, is 4 HP, and there's something to be said of people like small modules. Discotheque says, these are the best looking modules available, as well as the Create units. Pretty lovely to look at. I think the Create modules are also very good looking. I designed the panels on a few of those as well. I like the size of the filter of Crows better than the Crow, William says, and he also says modules need more space, and I agree with that completely. I think for someone with giant hands, I'm sick of little tiny modules. I think there's a limit to what you can do size-wise and get away with it, although I'm going to strongly test that in the future. We have a mixer, which again is sort of right out of frame up here, that I think is 52 HP. I showed it in the last live stream with Herman, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again when Herman and I live stream tomorrow. 52 HP mixer. It's ridiculous. The upcoming Pittsburgh Synth is 60 HP, although that's a little bit different because that does come in its own case. And then, of course, the Voltage Lab 2, which is 2 rows of 90. But again, not quite the same. It does come in its own case, and although you could take it out and put it in something else, the case is beautiful. I don't know why you would do that. That would be madness. But I can see, if you're touring or you have specific needs, it is eurorack, and that's kind of what makes eurorack interesting. Bill asks, how do you decide which animal ends up on which panel? Well, there's kind of two things that go into that. One is, do I think the animal is entertaining at all? So, we come up with an animal we think is either funny or weird or cute. And then it also has to be tall and skinny because it has to fit on a panel. And that's why, the llama is great, or a standing up polar bear is great. The narwhal swimming works. the elephant works just because it's sort of playing on the idea that an elephant is just really, really big, and so it didn't have to fit on the panel. But the shape of the animal, it definitely has more to do with it than I would pretend to think. The elephant originally was the cardinal, and the reason I switched it to elephant was I just couldn't make the cardinal panel not look like a Christmas Hallmark card. I don't know why that was the case, but it seemed like no matter what I did, it just looked like it was the holidays. And so for that reason, I switched it to the elephant, which I think was the thing to do because the elephant's super cool. Just sit and noodles with these modules all night long. There's so much, especially the elephant, as far as breadth of sounds. There's just a million interesting, weird. Patch the sequencer back into it. Because you do have the wave shape of the elephant goes from sine to square, you have this sort of built-in overdrive sound to it. Because what you're not doing is you're not blending from a sine to a square wave. We are just blowing out the sine. So it does give you that overdrive sound. You know, the end result is a square wave, but all the bits in the middle are it's pushing to that point instead of just mixing between the two waveforms. they sound interesting. Anybody have any Lagoo Famine. Sorry if I botched that. Ordered, looking forward to them. Thanks, Richard Co. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're going to dig them. Go back into the... Can I run some audio rate trigger stuff through the elephant? Yeah. Let's see what happens. I will trigger it with... Let's trigger it with the function junction. We'll start with something simple. We'll just take the square wave LFO. So that's an LFO. Let's switch now to Big O, because that will run much, much higher frequencies here. So what happens is you trigger it and you just end up with, you're going to reach a point where it's just on because you're within the sort of cuts of the envelope. But we can make the envelope as tight as possible. Use this to replace your theremin for your novelty Halloween song. Then you don't even have to take your theremin out of the closet. And that just saves time. Wavefold that. Alright. I don't think it's going to be... I don't think the wave folder is going to be as interesting as you want it to be. I could be wrong. Alright, I was wrong. There's a bit right in the middle there that's ridiculous. All right, that's out of control. I have to find the... There we go. I think that played with my brain. I didn't realize it was mostly... left here. sounds odd. Oh, I have no idea what the BPM is. It's right around there somewhere. But yeah, this live stream is sort of derailed out of control here, but that is what we can do with our elephant and the narwhal, and really the whole set at this point. Look at this super cool kick drum. Great sound and snare. Let's take that. I think. Let's take the snare drum and do something weird with it. I think I've made my non-weird point for the evening. So let's take the snare drum and run it through. Instead of going back into here, let's give it its own channel with the mixer here. There we go. That's plenty weird for a snare drum, I think. That's quite a long question, I guess, but yes, it's analog. All the drum sounds are analog. The snare drum is now going through a phaser, which is also analog. We lost the elephant. Bring it back. There we go. So if anybody has any questions that are watching that maybe aren't involved in the chat, feel free to jump in and ask. Now's a great time because I've sort of run through everything. I've explained it. Maybe you jumped in late, you didn't see something, you have a question about it. Happy to repeat it. I can hang out for a bit. I've got nowhere to be. And this seems like a good thing to do for the evening. So I could even... If you guys want, I could zoom out the camera, I could show you the whole case, and then I could make something that's that maybe involves everything, or can get a little crazy, and then later on I'll just chop the video down. Can I throw some reverb on the Narwhal? Yes, I can. I can do that. So the reverb tonight, as per usual, is the Alesis MIDI Verb 2. Although I usually use preset 28. Tonight, because it's drums, we use a more sensible preset 16. Does the Narwhal crash? Set it to depending on what type of crash sound you're going for. It very quickly sort of devolves. I think the illusion of analog modeling sort of that illusion kind of goes away over time. You know, the longer the decay, the perhaps the less real it sounds, but not the less interesting. It's a nice crash. Get here, which gives you a nice ride. Certainly a bell hit from a ride. I think you would have to give it some filtering to get there. I think it would need a little bit more shaping. But there's a lot of energy in the waveforms, so it does have potential with some additional shaping downstream. Starshine asks, will the future evolution of these fellas have CV over everything? No, they won't. And one of the reasons for that is a lot of this stuff, there's no real easy way to CV it. A lot of times adding CV means doubling the size of the entire circuit, because you have to put a VCA or some type of CV controlling circuit in there that it just doesn't make sense, because most of the controls on these, because certainly the Elephant, the audio is running right through the potentiometers, which makes it difficult to add CV to that. Now there are probably a few more patch points on it that maybe we didn't expose, but for the purpose that we're going to use them for, which is a dedicated drum machine, I have access to everything I need for that. And I don't plan on doing another batch of modules. I think I'm super happy with these. I don't plan on doing another batch of drum modules. Emmett Henry says the full-on drum machine is going to be a keeper if you get all these babies crammed in. It will have all these. It'll have multiples of some of them, and then it has some other It has another voice of things as well. So that it will have things. Plus, quite a bit more. The fun thing about these modules is they are really a sneak peek at what we're working on the larger side, but they don't give anything away. They don't really tell you anything about what we're doing. 4 drum modules tells you we're doing a drum machine, but it doesn't give you any insight really into what it's going to look like or sound like or work like, which I think is really fun. It really is. These are the raw sounds. Process away. And I think for that, they do a really fun job. It's the snare drum through a phase shifter, some reverb on it. I'm sorry, phaser. I think the only distinction in my mind, because we had done a phase shifter module years ago, and it was huge, and it had every possible feature we could conceive of. We put it in there. It was a 16-stage analog phase shifter, and I think it sounds phenomenal. This one is 8 HP, and it doesn't have every feature imaginable. It has what I would consider the guitar pedal set of features. Maybe a little bit more than that, but that is the feature set it has. So I kind of think of this more as a phaser and the other one as the phase shifter. Def Jeff asks, how many drum sounds do you think the drum machine will have? It will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, depending on how you count them. All extremely analog. How long for Toad? Jeff asks how long for the Toad phase shifter, and that module is going to be a bit. It's not in the next batch. It's not in the next series. It's in the series after that. I'm going to zoom out here a bit, or in. Either way. Do I have anything around here? No, I'm good. There we go. Not the best lighting in the world, but it's close enough. Here is the phaser. It's called the Toad. I think this is the coolest panel we've ever done for any. This may be the coolest eurorack module panel ever, in my opinion. I think it's fantastic. It's the eye of the Toad is the LFO. If I sort of cover it, you can see it sort of breathing away there. Yeah, super cool. But that one's coming. It's coming later on. Very syndrome-y sound here. a good example with the elephant of the balance. You can balance the tuning CV, which is tied to the envelope, with the actual tuning. The more CV you give it, the more it's going to swing. So you got to pull back the tuning frequency and sort of balance the two to find the range, the sweep range that you want. That's how you get that nice kick sound. And again, using the material CV to shape the waveform. You can just leave it at a sine and then just add enough of the envelope so that when that envelope kicks open, it gives you, you can hear it push or hit the head because it distorts a little bit because it squares off, and I think that's super fun. Lindro B says, by the way, if you guys plan a revision of the East Beast, please put the filter of crows in it. It would be more character to a single oscillator synth. The East Beast, which I have down here, by the way, has the filter of crows in it. What it doesn't have is the overdrive, but the Pittsburgh filter core is the same in the filter of crows with the Pittsburgh filter. But I get what you're saying. You like the overdrive. And I think it sounds like, but the East Beast, I think, has such a beautiful sound that I don't have any plans for revisions for it at this point. But I think it's a lovely, lovely sounding synthesizer. And then using the modulator in the square wave, you can add almost at full audio rate modulation. You can add it in just a little bit. You almost get like aliasing out of it. To the point of overdrive. Bill says the East Beast and West Pest are both fantastic. Well, thank you. I think the West Pest should start shipping this week if my sources are correct. If not, should be next week. That was a pain in the ass to deal with. The West Pests were stuck in limbo for quite a while. I think there was a customs paperwork issue, but my understanding is that's all resolved, and the West Pest should be available. Mr. Scoops asks, any news on the Pest? I've got a big hole in my rack next to the Beast, just staring at me. Like I said, I believe they're starting to ship this week, and if not, it should absolutely be next week. You say bar customs, but what you mean is customs are great. They're doing good work, and I applaud their efforts. And if they want to, let my next order straight through, I'm not gonna disagree. How the hi-hat just adds context. It's a weird sound coming out of the elephant until you hear the hi-hat. Then you're like, oh, it's percussion. Synth Anatomy says, I would order the new modules, but EU will need to add import taxes, VAT, I understand. Is the reality of the limited edition modules. I apologize. I don't have any plans for a Toad shirt, but I kind of desperately want one too. We may have an extra large flamingo shirt. Bill, if you shoot me an email to remind me, I can check tomorrow while I'm there. I agree that we also need hoodies. We will see. I was promised, well, 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, I was promised East Beast and West Pest merch, and I don't have my East Beast or West Pest t-shirt yet, or hoodie. All I have is a dumb East Beast Halloween costume and a weird set of sunglasses from the West Pest. But I would like a West Pest t-shirt and an East Beast t-shirt. So I think we should all send Create Audio emails saying, hey, where's my t-shirts? I even designed them. I had them. Now, to be fair, they were basically just the pieces of the artwork off the panels, but I pasted them on a picture of a t-shirt and sent them to Create Audio and said, look, I want one of these. It didn't happen. But that's okay. They've been very busy. So I get it. I understand. And again, that was a long time ago. The elephant is now a bird. See, I should have left it the cardinal. It's just sort of chirping away. That's kind of fun. That's full modulation from the LFO running below audio rate, so you can really hear it kind of doing its thing. Create Audio says, I want a Big O shirt with a really dumb sayings on it. Wait. Several years ago, I had a conversation with one of the dudes from Create, and we spent a good 10 minutes just coming up with every conceivably dumb thing we thought Captain Big O would say. It was wildly entertaining. Create Audio says, maybe we should do a Kickstarter for shirts. That seems about right. I just backed a Kickstarter for a book. So, shirts I feel like are achievable. I also backed a Kickstarter here locally in Pittsburgh for a brew pub, because what Pittsburgh needed was another brew pub. And I heard the call and agreed. Actually, it was friends of the family, but we backed at a level that gets us a party there. So at some point, once the brew pub opens, there will be a Pittsburgh Modular party at my friend's brew pub, which will be a lot of fun. And I can promise it'll be the weirdest music that's ever heard in that place. And I think that should count. Hugh Maxwell Ward says, what neighborhood is the brew pub opening in? I can't remember. It's over near Fox Chapel, but not in Fox Chapel. Oh, Danielle probably knows. So this mixer I've been going through for the drums here, and actually what's not going through it? The Narwhal. We'll run that through it. There we go. So this was, the idea of this mixer was basically to be a summing mixer for the drums. You can see I have kick, snare, elephant, and Narwhal on channels 1 through 4, and then we have pan pots for each one, in case you wanted to drive people crazy. And really, if you remember our 2+2 mixer, where the idea was you could do 2 channels, 2 channels. We have a mono version of this with mutes and inverters that allows you to split it into 2 channel mixers and do all that stuff. This one doesn't do that. This one is stereo, so the 2 outputs are for left and right. Although you could easily just use it for 2 different buses and just hard pan left or right or in the middle to go to both bus. It's eurorack, so you can be creative. But, you know, there's LEDs on every channel, and that's awesome. But what's really cool about this, there's a mute. So if you want to mute all the channels, you can do that, certainly. But if you turn it up, and I'm going to turn this down a little bit here. If you turn the switch down here into the up position, it saturates. So we have this super soft saturating circuit in here. It's really meant to be like a soft compression. But if you hit everything real hard, you just get this really nice bit of drive out of it. So if we just do the kick drum, you'll be able to hear it. So this is nice and clean. There's your clean. But as you bring in the volume, you get just a touch of that saturation, which I think sounds so nice, especially for drums. And as sort of a summing mixer for these guys with that just extra bit of sound there, I think is fantastic. Again, I patched the elephant into the sequencer right below it, into the frequency. So we are FMing the tuning of the oscillator with the sequencer, just to give a nice little pitch thing there. You can always add in the modulator up top as well. For just a little bit of wobble. It sounds nice. Let's see I guess, says, I thought it was creator versus elephant, as I have neither, but dang, it's now need both. Well, obviously, more eurorack modules is better. Just blow out the kick drum. Another nice thing about the saturation circuit is it acts like that compressor, so you know what's happening downstream isn't going to be, you're not going to destroy it. Kick drum to the extreme. Gate Slayer FPB says I'll be using my giraffe as a drums mixer. Not enough HP for the copy. And that's it. That'll work. Yeah. Four HP mixer. That'll do it just fine. I'm always interested how the Narwhal mixes with the rest of the kit, because what on its own may sound like a very strange cymbal sound, although I don't know if I would call this a cymbal sound, but on its own it ends up being a very weird, you know, this is kind of a weird sound. This is a very simple sound here. Can add back in this sequencer down here, which is really just pick some random sequency values and use that to modulate the decay. That's awesome. So that's saturate, sort of overblown, and everything gets nice and smeary and drivey. But we're going to turn that off and go back to normal so we can focus on what the drums on their own sound like here. So there we are. We're back to turn the saturate off, and these are just the drum sounds now. Mr. Scoop says, you guys should do a video explaining the sequence generator on the Beast, and I assume the Pest. Yeah, they're exactly the same. It works a treat, but I have no idea why. LOL. Alright, you talked me into it. Not tonight, but I will do one. I'm a big fan of randomly generating interesting patterns and having those evolve or being able to play with them in interesting ways. And the East Beast, I thought I could sneak something in there like that. And I think it works really well. It's sort of a hidden feature. Certainly that there's so much to it, because of course you would expect, okay, I can do random, and you can, but because it has that extra depth to it, that's where you're like, oh, it shouldn't be this deep, but it is. And the whole second, the digital multi-mod as well is one of those things in the East Beast and the West Beast that you're like, well, okay, it doesn't really need that. It's a full synth voice, but having it just adds that extra layer of control. Certainly in the West Pest, even more so than the East Beast. Being able to use the multi-mod on the wave folder with the envelope coming out of the multi-mod really takes the West Pest to where I want it to go. Jeff says, I got the East Beast for the sequence secrets. I have all the sounds otherwise. That's one of the reasons why it's in my eurorack case, is because I love having the keyboard, and just using it as a controller I think is really cool. That's why I put it in here. And I like having, an easy to grab bass line or an easy to grab lead. So I think in my eurorack case anyway, it solves a ton of little problems that I can solve in other ways, but I can do it in 42 HP where, doing those things separately or, creating a synth voice, it's going to end up being way bigger than that. And it's not going to sound as good, in my humble opinion. Starshine says, I like to build evolving sequences out of rudimentary modules, but it takes a lot of space. It does, but that's one of the fun bits of eurorack, is that every module does a lot. I'm not going to speak for every module, but most modules out there can be utilized in ways that probably aren't immediately obvious. And I think that's what makes the whole process fascinating, because to take something that you think functions a certain way and just flip it around and say, no, I'm going to use it for this instead, or I'm going to do something weird with it, that's kind of what makes eurorack great. And one of those is how I do this all the time. It's like, how can I create something random if I don't have, even if I don't have like a sample and hold or a digital random generator immediately available to me? How can I use feedback to create instability and then use that instability to control things? One of the tricks that I always had that I thought was interesting, whether it's that interesting or not, I don't know, was in the symbiotic waves module was to use, or I'm sorry, double helix module was to take the random out of the LFO section in the middle and use that to trigger the dynamics section, the low pass gate. And it would trigger it, but it wouldn't trigger it every time. It would trigger it, randomly. It would get a sharp enough low to tall that it would trigger. And so you would get these fantastic random rhythms out of it. So that was my first foray into, wait, I can use this as not only a random CV, which it is, but also as a random gate source. And that was cool because then you could split it and you run the CV into the pitch and run it also into the gate input, and it handled both things. Bill Smith says, you guys really packed a lot of value into the East Beast West Pass. It says, yeah, exploring patches is super fun. It takes space and money. And that's true. And I think that's why the East Beast and the West Pass are such great little instruments, because it gives you so much of the flexibility of fully modular, because it is fully modular. But it also gives you, they're fairly priced, I believe, and they also give you a complete set of tools out of the box. So you can start doing the weird stuff right away. You don't have to worry about, I need this other module to do this, or I need to complete my system. It's just there. I don't know if I have... don't know where the clock is. I wrapped up my cables nice and neat. I unplugged a clock to get a clock over here, and I don't know which one I unplugged. That's okay. There we go. So as far as random goes, let's just make a weird random sequence. Let's just generate something. Sequence. I'm going to say it works. The random patterns it generates in the ESPs can be up to 32 steps long. I have no idea how many steps this is. It certainly favors 8, 16, and 32, although it will do odd number sequences as it sees fit. You know, who are we to judge? Can randomize the filter cutoff per step on the sequence, which is super fun. You do the same thing with the oscillator waveform as well. In just case we're getting some square wave here, we use a pulse width modulation on the pulse width. Yeah, I think this turned into a fine patch. Although nothing's patched into the toad at this point. Maybe we run the bass through that. Run the East Beast through phaser. Because again, the phaser is really just local florist. Oh, I wanted to use a phaser. The phaser is meant to be like a guitar pedal and function like that. So there we go. Yeah. It's just like putting a phase pedal right next to your East Beast and going to town. I recommend just I have the green Boss phase pedal. I think it sounds awesome. I think it's digital, but it sounds really good. The Toad is analog. It's analog 12. It could be 12 or 7 stages, and you can do both 12 and 7 stages. So if I let me set these 2 channels the same here. So I have 7 stages panned right and 12 panned left, and you get this crazy stereo sound. That's weird. You can also flip the phase of the dry signal going to the mix. So right now we have the positive mix going over here and the negative mix, the negative dry going over here, positive dry, negative dry. If you make them the same, it sort of pulls everything into your head a little bit. Then split them apart again. It's crazy. And then you also have feedback, positive and negative. If you like that sound or remember I'd ever heard the sound of our original phase shifter module, I think you're going to dig this one. I think it's really, really good. comb filter hedgehog. That's good. Oh no, I killed it. All right, everybody, I think it's clearly been 2 hours. We accomplished very little, I feel like. But we got to play with the elephant and the narwhal, and it was fun. We got to play with the East Beast, the toad. Yeah, it was good. We crashed one of the sequencers, so we got that going for us. What we'll do. Just steal the sequencer from down here. Hello, Yotis. Welcome to the end. See, I think this is the best weird beat so far. Take 4 here. Is that what I wanted? Oh, that's the output. There we go. Yes, this is the sound of the elephant and the reverb from the cymbal. Alright, so that's that. I think I'm going to I keep saying I'm going to call it an evening, but I think it sounds cool. Feel like, and this isn't elephant specific, it's just percussion specific to me. I feel like the higher frequency, the shorter I want the envelope. So for instance, I know there's a lot going on here, but turn the bass down for a moment. So because this is a super, the elephant's playing this weird springy high pitch sound, I want the envelope to be super short. But if I bring down the frequency to like here, it just feels naturally like the envelope should be a little longer. Like that sounds more natural to me, even though this sounds not really a natural sound. But that's definitely one way that I approach percussive sounds, is that as they get higher, I want them to be snappier. Like way up here, I'm probably going to pull it back all the way and make it nice and sharp. Lower. You want to let it open a little bit. I don't know, that's probably just my brain being a little weird. That's kind of how I think about that stuff. Starshot, I'm way too old to know what a Jersey beat is. One, two, three, 16th before beat 4, and the and of 4. I think I'm going to stick with the kick, although I appreciate the feels weird to do a live stream and not use the local florist for anything. I feel like it's not how the rules should work. But because one of my prototypes crashed, there's nothing I can do. I guess I could fix it. I can turn it off and turn it back on again. But then everything would lose its mind. So let's see if I can do this. go. It's like it never happened. So let's see what happens if we just trigger this guy. All right, now we have the local florist. And all I'm doing is sending a gate into the input. I can modulate the pitch of that using the time input. Yeah, that's good. Any word? Yoda asks, any word on snakes or Bengal tiger? Well, I just had to pull out the snakes to reboot it because it crashed. So that tells you I haven't worked on the firmware at all. Starshine asks, what was the name Local Florist inspired by? Well, because the local florist lives somewhere between a flanger and a chorus. And if you say flanger and chorus a million times back to back, it kind of sounds like florist. And then I always see those, in every florist where it's like support your local florist, and I thought that was funny. So that's why I became the local florist. Oh, on a completely unrelated note from what I'm doing tonight. Well, not completely unrelated. You can see that, you can't really see it, but the elephant and the narwhal have these little black rubber covers over the switch caps. I think they're nice. Finish it. All the new modules, the Filter Crows has a bunch of them. All the new modules that have switches have a switch cap on them. It's great. We get those from Thonk, and we had run out. So I ordered, a couple days ago, last week at some point, I don't know. I ordered 6,000 of them, and they arrived today, and I had ordered the wrong size. I ordered the large ones. I should order the small ones. So I placed an order for the correct size today. Again, for 6,000 of them, and they shipped them today. And they also said in their email, they were very kind to say if I returned the ones that I ordered incorrectly, they would give me a refund. So that's awesome. Thank you, Thunk. And if you're you're into DIY stuff at all, Thunk has it's a great source. We use this guys for a ton of stuff now. Really good guys. So there you go. There's your end of stream commercial for Thunk. Not sure what I'm going to do with a different sequencer. When I want to make hi-hat patterns, my typical method of doing that is just mashing the buttons and saying, oh, that's the new hi-hat pattern. It seems to work okay. Take the snare drum through. Whoops. Let's run it through the wolf. No, I want some real, like filter of crows, obviously. Just destroy it. Yeah, that's great. Yoda asks, totally unrelated to what's going on right now. but what transformers or switching power supplies do you use in your cases, or do you design and build them from scratch? No, we don't design and build them from scratch. That would be crazy. If you want to know what we're using, Yotis, you can send me an email and I will give you that information. It's less of the power supplies that we use. It's less about the power supplies themselves, but it's sort of how we have them configured. But if you want to know what supply we use, shoot me an email. CIDE says the Safari series is very cool, but what happened to the Lifeforms modules? We don't have the Lifeforms modules were a line of modules that we sold for a while, and right now we don't have any real module line. We have the limited edition stuff, and sort of we make a module, once it's gone, it's gone, but we don't have any long-term module line. And because of that, the Lifeform stuff didn't really make sense to keep doing it. And our focus is on these new larger instruments that we're doing, and because of that, we had to sort of pull back and focus on the research and development that was needed, and the whole management of we need this stuff in stock and all the dealers all the time didn't make a whole lot of sense for us at the moment. But once we have the new instruments, those will be available, and that'll be an ongoing line. But the modules for us, I think, going forward, at least for now, for the foreseeable future, are just whatever whims that me and Michael have. If it makes an interesting module, that's what we are going to do. And we'll make a couple hundred of them and kind of go from there, and then move on and do something else. Another reason we switched from, because we could have easily just done all these modules with the Lifeforms graphics and said, hey, it's Lifeforms, but it really is a shift in our mentality, and it's a shift in metal vendors as well. So the metal vendor I'm using now would have never been able to make it look like these guys. And so they would have been a little different anyway, and I thought, well, if we're going to do a little different, let's do something that's totally different, and let's see what we can do, and let's put a little bit more of our personality into these modules, because I'm a relatively silly person, and I like the idea of, most people don't have a system full of one brand of modules with everything matches. So I thought, well, because that's not what people do, people sort of mix and match from different brands and different modules, different colors. I thought, well, let's think of more like guitar pedals, and let's make them a little bit more fun and a little bit stranger. Let's go super weird or super, and because I didn't have to say, okay, I need to be able to sell this module for the next 5 years. I only need to be able to sell it for 200, however long that takes. It was I felt a lot more freedom to experiment with different types of graphics and just have a little bit more fun with it. So that's a long answer to a fair question. Are there any plans for something to replace the double helix? No. No, not really. We have an oscillator, a limited oscillator coming out, but it's more of an homage to the old generator we did years and years ago. I would say if you want a double helix, I just get two big. It's under my head, but two bigos, and you're the good portion of the way there. Or reverb. Maybe you can find one there. I always say this stuff and people will reach out to me via email and say, oh, I know you have one somewhere. And sometimes I do, but I end up selling them. So now I think I have 2 of those modules left and they're both mine. And that's kind of how all the old stuff goes. I kind of have the stuff that I use. Like the primary oscillator that's right here, this is a very early prototype. And if I pulled it out, the entire back is just covered in wires. So it's probably not going to work forever, and I don't know if I don't think I have a production run version of this. I think this is the one that I have. Yotis asks, it's a very serious question. Yotis asks, if you don't mind me asking, why'd you discontinue the SV1, part scarcity, or wanted to move on to bigger and better things? The SV1 is obviously our biggest selling module, biggest selling instrument of all time. That is the module that really made us the most money. I think it sounds great. It's a classic in my mind. I have one within arm's reach all the time. But this partnership with Create allowed us to do something interesting and something new. To work with Create with the SV1, it would have needed to be redesigned anyway, just to sort of fit on the rails of manufacturing changes. And if you're gonna change something just on the back end, you know, it's like, well, why don't we add that thing that I always thought it should have? Like, for example, the SV1, I love that instrument, but would it have been cool if it had 2 envelopes? Maybe not. So it was discontinued not because it sounded bad or not because we didn't like it. I love that instrument, but because of the circumstances and the dumb business side of Pittsburgh Modular, it didn't make sense to keep making it, if that makes any sense. That said, I suspect you're going to be very happy with some of the future options available. Greg S. says, the Big O's the function for dollar module of the decade. Yeah, I think Create's done a great job to allow Big O to be really affordable. And because, you know, we designed it to be modular in the same way that, you know, the East Beast is, or the SV1 was, you know, it has that wave folder and has that overdrive VCA built in, that you can use those independently because it's modular. So you really do, it's like 3 modules in one, and it's a great oscillator. The Captain Big O has the first, that's the first module that we used, the new sine wave circuit that Michael developed. Big O was the first thing to have that, before even any Pittsburgh stuff. The East Beast and West Pest also have that new sine circuit in it. And then, of course, all the new Pittsburgh, the oscillators, and all the new instruments coming out from us are going to use that as well. It just sounds really, really good. P. Maxwell Ward asks, what does SV stand for? Synthesizer voice. Greg S. says, I could see a revival of that little 4-channel mixer you featured in the previous rack. A Lifeforms era colored guy with square buttons. No. No, we're not going to do anything else life forms-ish. Everything is definitely going to have a new color scheme. The modules, like I said, the modules are all, everyone's going to be different. It's like guitar pedals. They're all going to be sort of have their own unique character. The synthesizers, however, don't. They have a new design language. It's very clean, I think beautiful, and they are all going to share that design language. It's very understated and not ridiculous like this at all. There's no hidden animals on them, and it really is a focus on what we can do with sound and what we can do with the instrument. That's what we want people to focus on. The craziest thing about them will be, of course, that, you know, the instruments all use the new knobs, which I think are absolutely stunning. Yeah, so that's... I've been trying to do less sort of 4-on-the-floor beats. It's so easy to type it in. But I listen to a lot of electronic music, and the majority of the stuff that I like to listen to doesn't have, you know, a house beat or a 4-on-the-floor kick beat. It's all sort of quirky and weird. And I think that's why I like it. So I'm trying to get in the habit of, in the same way that I mash the buttons to create hi-hat patterns, to sort of to trust the kick drum to just be another bit of the sound and not rely on it to do just the dancing thing, because I don't dance anyway. So what do I need that for? I don't need that. Get less weird with the phaser here. Maybe we drop it. We just go straight in. Clean it up. Or we could do a delay. That would be alright. You can see I have two analog delay units here, and that wire's not long enough. I've started, in what little free time I have, to switching the knobs on the old Lifeforms modules with my new knobs, which is a nightmare because the knobs don't naturally sort of fit on. You have to dig in there with an X-Acto knife and sort of carve out the knob to get it on. So I don't think I'm going to tackle something like the Voltage Lab or an SV1 though. I feel like they have to have the knobs that they came with. That is those instruments. You want to hear the East Beast into the phaser, into the filter of crows without stability in the overdrive. With resonance around 11 and wiggle the filter from 9 to noon. That's oddly specific. I think I can do that. All right, we're going to go out of here into the phaser. And then we will go out of the phaser into the filter of crows. Out of there, go into channel 2 here. I feel like I've done something wrong. Out to the in, to the in. Oh, I plugged into the CV input on the mixer, not the audio input. Alright, now what am I doing? Okay, I got the phaser into the filter of crows without stability. Resonance around 11 o'clock. We get the filter between 9 to noon. With stability off, the resonance right around 11 o'clock is the threshold of where it fails. As you can hear, it's just a ton of feedback. Maybe. Let's try it with stability on and overdrive on. You can also open up the Pittsburgh filter down here, so. Alright, now that I've fixed this filter, let's try it again. Yeah, it has its moments, but it just wants to die. At 11, you're not going to get much, but up here in the 1 to 230 range, right on the bleeding edge. This is an interesting bit of the filter of crows. You have that bleeding edge right before it fails when stability is off. And it's that edge is different for any sound that you patch into it, depending on what frequencies it's getting. If we go into overdrive here, turn stability on, go into overdrive, you can sort of simulate that a little bit, but it sounds different. But you have a much larger range to work with. You could use both, I suppose. interesting. I'm going to I had to... There we go. There's definitely no more voltage labs. Not for Jorb, not for anybody. Unless you're willing to pay the ridiculous prices. I don't know, I'm using the wrong module now. The ridiculous prices on Reverb. But Voltage Lab 2 is coming along. I've been working on the sequencer firmware, and the voicing is coming together. I have a meeting with Michael on Friday, where we're going to do some gain staging and voicing of it. So it's coming along nicely. It'll be the second Pittsburgh instrument that comes out. So we've got, first we have an instrument, and then the Voltage Lab 2 will be out later. Probably in the spring, realistically. We had some problems with some parts, just like the rest of the world, so. But I think we've got everything sorted at this point. It's just making sure it sounds the way we want it to sound. That's David Kim says CV controlled by chat. That's a cool idea. I'm sure someone could make a module that takes chat and converts it into CV. You just use I'm sure that you could probably do that in Ableton. I don't think I'm bolt proactive. Craig says, is this Richard 1 volt proactive? And I think if I was 1 volt proactive, I'd be able to play the keyboard better, but I can't. Starshine says, I don't like my job. How do I become a eurorack modular designer? Just start designing modules. Yoda says, I'm super interested in what the Voltage Lab sequencer is going to be all about. Think of the last Voltage Lab sequencer, and then start over. Jeff Hopkins says, I really like the touch controller from Voltage Lab 1. Hopefully something similar with quantized stuff like micro sequencer added on as an option, etc., mixed with East Beast capabilities. All those are good ideas, Jeff, and I suspect you will like what you see when you see it. The sequencer controller in Voltage Lab 2 is significantly more complex than the one that was in the original. Although it does everything that the original did, that is a small fraction of the feature set. It's also the sequencer, touch controller, or whatever you want to be for a Voltage Sub 2 is also a MIDI controller. So you can use it to control non-eurorack things. Although, that would be madness, and I can't condone it. If for some reason you own a synthesizer that's not patchable, it will work with that as well. Oh no, I unplugged something. I bumped the decay knob. What was this video for? Oh yes, the elephant and the narwhal. I feel like it's been a long time since I did a live stream, so I need to catch up tonight. get all the weirdness out tonight so that when Herman and I play tomorrow, it's very controlled. And if any of you have seen Herman and I perform, you'll know that that's what it's all about. Subtlety and control. Yotis asks, if one were to get all the Safari modules, would they essentially have a Voltage Lab 2? No. There's really nothing out there that represents the oscillators from the Voltage Lab 2. Even the new limited oscillator that's going to come out, the local parks. It has bits of Voltage Lab 2, but not all, not really. So you're not really getting either of the oscillators. You don't get the function generators because we never did any eurorack modules of just the function generators that are in the Voltage Lab 2. The dynamics controllers are a little bit different. The eurorack modules are based on the Voltage Lab, where the Voltage Lab 2 and then the other instrument we have coming out, they're a little bit different. Does have a florist, so if you had a local florist, you would have that bit. And we've never done a delay either in the Safari, so that doesn't exist. And then there's some other bits in there too that haven't been modules. So no, not really. And then of course we don't have anything near this controller. Even if you had the snakes and the Bengal tiger sequencer I created it so I could sort of test some of the ideas that we were going to use for the Voltage Lab 2, but, well, I never finished these, so the firmware's never finished, so we didn't sell any. But even still, this only tests really one or two ideas that I had that I needed to prototype. The rest of the stuff will just be in the big thing. So, no, the Voltage Lab 2 is definitely going to stand on its own and really push what we're doing forward. And as well as the instrument that's going to come out before that, which we want this other instrument to be a surprise. So we haven't talked about what is in it. But I think you guys, I think you'll take it. And that's another one where you couldn't build it even with the modules. And that's kind of what makes these Safari modules so fun, is because it gives you a glimpse into what we're working on, but at the same time doesn't really tell you anything. It gives you an idea of some of the stuff that we have going on, but That's just enough to speculate. P. Maxwell Ward says, you guys have a gig tomorrow? Yes, Herman and I are going to jam tomorrow. Bill said, can't stop staring at the Hypnotoad's eye. Yeah, obviously the Hypnotoad was it was an inspiration for this. It's weird because the Hypnotoad doesn't really sound like a phaser. That's alright, it just kind of worked, and it doesn't look like this at all. But again, it just kind of worked. I think what it does is the weird black on black pattern, and then it was obvious where to put the LFO LED. Like, where else could it go? It had to be on the eye. So that one came together really well, and it's my favorite panel. I like red a lot, so I think the elephant, toad, llama, I think they all look great. Function junction down here. I'm a big fan of the function junction panel. I think it's just fun. I don't think we're going to do any reindeer-themed holiday modules. I told the story earlier how the elephant was originally a cardinal. Oh, and some lucky purchaser will get the cardinal panel that I used to use And actually what we started doing with all of the limited edition ones was the clear acrylic panel and then the printed piece of paper that I put under it for prototyping. We started saving those. I used to just chuck them away. We started saving them, and now we're putting them in one of the serial number 1 to 10 boxes, sort of randomly. I just sort of slide them in. So someone will actually get the elephant module, but then in the box will come the acrylic panel and the original cardinal panel artwork as well. And I think you'll see it just wasn't as cool. But anyway, so what was I going to say? Oh yes, when the elephant module was called the Cardinal and it had a cardinal graphic on it, the reason why I switched to the elephant was I could never get it to not look like sort of a holiday Hallmark card. And for that reason, it became the elephant. So I don't think we're going to do any Skulldrazer. You know about our cable tester with the clown on it, so clearly, yes. We still have the cable tester. We've worn through, it's amazing. Well, first of all, it's amazing how long these 1/8" jacks last. But we have had to swap out 1/8" jacks on that so many times. But, you know, impressive, though, how long they do last. I like sort of banging out beats like this where you just sort of randomly because when I perform with Herman that does it all the time, like the one changes, so like the downbeat changes, and I think instead of fighting it, you just sort of go with it. Because ultimately it doesn't really matter. Yeah, again, I'm just sort of hanging out, making weird sounds, making some drum beats. So if you have any questions and you're watching and you're not involved in the chat, feel free to jump in the chat and ask me questions. I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to, if I don't have to take the entire thing apart to try something, if you want to hear something. But I'm kind of trying to showcase the elephant and the narwhal, although the reality of it is, tonight has sort of become a showcase for all of the drums. The llama, the polar bear, llama kick, polar bear snare, elephant drum, and narwhal cymbal. So yeah, the elephant does sound really nice through the delay. I think because the frequencies are low enough that the delay has something to grab onto. Froze asks, is that the East Beast doing the bass melody? Yes, that's the East Beast. I just generated a random sequence. It's also going through a delay, but basically not. Rose asks, is Snake still in testing, or did you release that already? No, it's still in testing, and actually earlier in the live stream, one crashed, so I had to unscrew it, unplug it, plug it back in. It's a known bug. I just haven't had a minute to fix it. That's all right. They will come out eventually. I will finish them, and they'll ship eventually, because we made 200 of them. They're all sitting on a shelf at the shop. It would be ridiculous to make them and not make them available. The Bengal Tiger, I would give that about a 50-50. We made these as well, but we didn't make very many. And all the parts that we used to make it were parts that we already had. So, will this one ever be available? I don't know. It would be more work to get this one done. Maybe if all the instruments I'm working on right now get finished, and then I have a month, I'll finish it. So we will, speaking of the Bengal Tiger sequencer here, let's take the pitch from the sequencer and use that to modulate the pitch of the elephant. Which is this sound. So we have it going through a little bit of reverb, well, a little bit of delay. Because here's the dry sound. Run it through some delay. Run it through some reverb, which is the Alesis MIDI-verb 2, preset 16. And then unmute everything else. Herman asks, what am I bringing tomorrow? I haven't thought about it. Probably this system here. I have a a really specific thing at the shop to do tomorrow that's probably going to take the majority of the day. So I don't think I'm going to have time to mess around or pick any random stuff. I would love to bring the sampler tomorrow and do weird vocal samples over everything, but I don't think I'm going to have time for that. Danielle says, special thank you to everyone who purchased the Narwhal and Elephant tonight. Yeah, I appreciate that, and I just appreciate everyone that's hanging out. That's awesome too. If you ordered one earlier in the day, because I sort of just put it up as I was going along, they probably did ship today. I know Ross was back there shipping cases, and I think he just sees the orders and he grabs them as they come. What is between... Nicole asks, what is between the wolf and the crow? Wolf and the crow? Oh, this is a stereo Cappy mixer. It's a 4-channel stereo mixer. Each channel has a little meter, and it has a main mute where you have a clean pass through, and then you also have a saturate mode where it has sort of soft compression and saturation added to it, which works really great as a sort of summing mixer for the drums, although right now I just have the kick and the snare going in there. But if you want to do kick hard left and snare hard right, you can do that for some reason. Bill Smith says, there's a Pittsburgh sampler. No. I have an Akai MPC-1 that I have a bunch of movies worth of samples on. That's all. The only thing I really use it for is voice samples. Starshine said, this has been heckin' awesome, my dude. Well, thanks. It's nice to do a live stream for the first time in quite a while. My schedule's been crazy, and unfortunately, I don't see it slowing down too much. I do have a vacation coming up in a couple weeks, but I'm going to try to squeeze more of these in because they are super fun, and especially the ones where there's really no purpose to them. Tonight the idea was to talk about the drums, but really my favorites are the ones that's like you just start with a blank canvas and go. The jam sessions with Herman are kind of like that, except there is some structure to it, and I think Herman always comes prepared. I don't go prepared at all. Not every sequence the East Piece generates is a winner. Sounds alright though. What we do pulse width, square wave. So much bigger. It's too big. Llama and bear. They're all playing right now. We'll mute the bass. This is the kick and the snare. And then we have, this is the hi-hat. That's the Narwhal. And then this is the elephant. Take off all the turn off all the reverb and everything, and that's sort of what you got. Bring back in. Yeah, now I'm not thinking that sequence. We just make our own sequence. We don't need robots to make sequences. We can do it ourselves. We're adults. Froze says, can we ask if the new instrument has a sequencer? Yeah, you can ask that. It does have a sequencer. But not like the Voltage Lab 2. It has a sequencer closer to like the East Beast. Voltage Lab 2 has an entire module dedicated to sequencing. The other new instrument does not. I always find demo videos tough because I feel like it's almost impossible to demo, for me personally. It's really hard to demo a module because synthesis is so much about context, and it's so much about building blocks and signal path that to say this is what this one module does is difficult because you have to give it some sort of context, and I struggle with that a lot, to try to find a way to explain the features of a module and make it sound interesting, and try to keep as little context as possible, because you want to focus on just the instrument. So these longer jams are cool because I can sort of just be like, well, you know, for people that are watching this later on, they can sort of scrub through and they go, oh, that's what it sounds like there, that's what it sounds like there. They get an idea within the context of a larger instrument what any particular module can do, and I think that's more interesting, more helpful to me. Oh, Yotis asks, what am I drinking? It's called Bane of Existence from Hitchhiker, which is one of my favorite local Pittsburgh brew pubs. Which I set this beer here right before I started the live stream, and I just opened it about a half hour ago, so it's very warm, but that's all right. It's still good. The overdrive from the kick was coming from the saturation circuit in the mixer, not the drum itself. Yotis asks, have I given detailed rundowns of how snakes and Bengal tigers work and what they will do? No, I haven't, because they're not finished. I can tell you what they would do, but, and again, when they're ready, I'll talk about them a bit more. But they're not. The drum one's a basic 2-channel 16-step sequencer. You can have one 32-step sequence if you want for the drums. And you could load and save patterns, so you can have up to 16 patterns saved. It has Euclidean, random, chance. You can change the gate length. You can change the pattern length. You can have it morph. You can change the direction that the sequence runs in. Most of that's actually the only thing that doesn't work in here is the saving and loading. And there's a couple bugs that make it shut off every now and then. But other than that, it's mostly done. I think for a small 8 HP mixer or a sequencer, I think it does its job well. The Bengal Tiger is way more complicated, and I can't fit it into 3 quickly spoken sections. So we'll just say it's a 16-step sequencer with chants and scales and all sorts of insane stuff that I never use at all. Just like in the snakes, I never use most of the stuff that it does, because I'm always trying to do live stream and I have 1,000 things going on. So I just sort of bang on it until something sounds vaguely interesting. And then I call it a good pattern. But you could shift things around. You can come up with much more interesting stuff with it than I do if you spend any time with it at all, which is nice. Well, I think at 11:30, 3.5 hours after I began, is a good time to end this. I tried to end it earlier, but there was a bunch of people watching, and I felt like, well, I should keep going. Not to say I shouldn't keep going now, but I have to use the restroom, and I need a snack. So I'm going to call it a night. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me and checking out the elephant and the narwhal and really the llama and the polar bear. And what else did I use? I used the filter of crows, and I used the East Beast. I know someone asked earlier if we ever revise the East Beast, it should include the filter of crows filter. And I think what they meant by that is the overdrive features that it has, and this maybe the stability features. And I said, no, I'm very happy with the East Beast as is. What I forgot to mention was the East Beast is $250 with a case and a box and cables and a power supply, and it's a synthesizer. It sounds amazing. And the filter of crows is a filter, and it's $250. So I think it's okay. I think the East Beast does a great job of being a single oscillator monosynth that just has a beautiful set of sounds. Like for bass or for leads, how do you want to play it with MIDI? You can play with MIDI. You want to type in a pattern like that? You can. It's got a great sequencer. This is a bunch of modules that would be a great start to any system. So yeah, those are the things I talked about tonight. Tomorrow I will be hanging out with Herman at his studio. I hung out there last week, but because I had this weird schedule thing going on, I wasn't sure if I would have to jump up and leave at a moment's notice. Turns out I didn't, but Herman and I, that's why we didn't live stream. But anyway, Herman and I had a lovely Wednesday last week, just sort of hanging out and chatting, which was great. So I'm anxious to get back and make some sounds at his studio tomorrow night. That will be at 8 o'clock, and it will be cool. So, yep, thank you, everybody. Thank you for everyone that purchased the modules or anything tonight. I really appreciate it. It helps keep us going. Anything purchased today, unless there's some weird reason stopping us, everything will be shipped out tomorrow. And that's kind of what we like to do with this stuff is, if it's up on our site, we have it and it's ready to go. And if not, we'll just put out of stock for the moment until it is. If there's ever anything up there that you don't see that you're interested in, if it's super old, Sean at Analog Haven probably has it. And if it's newer, I may have one. I may not. I don't know. You're welcome to send me an email, and I can either just say no or whatnot. But anyway, I see you guys tomorrow to make some music. Thanks for hanging out. Talk to you later.